Okay.
Tasiji will start shortly.
Sure. Then.
Okay, Tasiji, we are now live. We can start.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on understanding well-being in the Kush Himalayas. My name is Shashi Dorji, and I'm the coordinator of Kanchenjunga Landscape Initiative at the International Center for Integrated Mountain Development, ICIMOD. And it's my pleasure to be your host today. We are organizing this event as a part of a week-long event, A Week for Mountains, to celebrate the International Mountain Day, which takes place on 11 December every year. Till 17 December, we are celebrating a week dedicated to acknowledging the importance of mountains to life, and we will be very happy to see you in other events as well. Our ICIMOD colleague Udayan, Sajhana, and Saisab are with us, assisting with all technical and logistical matters. If you have any questions or technical issues, please reach out to one of them on MS Teams separately. Before going forward, please allow me to share some house rules. It is also displayed on the screen. I request all participants to kindly keep your microphone on mute and video off so that there is less distraction. I'll request speakers to unmute and turn their video on at the time of delivering the talk. In the context of today's webinar, ICIMOD as an intergovernmental organization, we strive for well-being of communities and ecosystems in the Kush Himalayas, comprising of 8 member countries. And it has become imperative for us to reflect on the impact of our actions on the ground in relation to the well-being and happiness paradigm. Also, we draw strength from progress made to strengthen more holistic and rounded development approach from our member countries, such as Bhutan's Gross National Happiness Framework, the work on science of happiness by the Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur, and quality of life assessment by Aga Khan Development Network in Pakistan. We have 3 objectives for today's webinar. First, to share the conceptual and methodological understanding of well-being. Second, to share learning on well-being research, pilots, and policies from different contexts in the Kush Himalayas. And finally, to co-create a roadmap of future work towards the development of uptake of the framework. In order to address these objectives, we are fortunate to have eminent panelists from our 3 member countries, Bhutan, India, and Pakistan. It's my privilege to introduce our distinguished speakers. From Bhutan, we have Mr. Karma Wangdi, who is the Deputy Chief Research Officer with the Center for Bhutan Studies and Gross National Happiness Research. From our 3 member countries, Bhutan, India, and periodic gross national happiness surveys and refining the methods of the framework. From India, it's my personal delight to introduce Professor Priyadashi Patnaik, who is the professor in the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, and also chair of the Rekhi Center of Excellence for the Science of Happiness at Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur. Professor Patnaik leads development of happiness index and its application in different projects in the state government as well as in different cities. And from Pakistan, we have Mr. Shahzad Ali Khan, who is the coordinator of Aga Khan Development Network. And Mr. Khan has led the quality of life assessment in northern Pakistan and advocates mainstreaming in the stakeholders' plans and programs. And the speaker from within ICIMOD includes Dr. Pema Jamso, Director General, Dr. Eklavya Sharma, Deputy Director General, Mr. Brish Rathore, Chief Policy Advisor, Dr. Abid Hussain, Food Security Economist, and Ms. Sabhani Tulhada, Research Associate Statistics. Let me extend a warm welcome to all the eminent panelists, speakers, and participants from the region and beyond to this interesting webinar. I must acknowledge the presence of over 50 participants representing our partner organizations from across Hindu Kush Himalayan countries and also few from beyond the region. Now, to begin the program, I would like to invite Director General of ICIMOD, Dr. Pema Jamso, to give his opening remarks. Over to you, Dr. Pema.
Thank you, Tashi. Can you hear me, everyone?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you. A distinguished writer on well-being, Tom Rath, in his article on the 5 essential elements, wrote, "Well-being is about the combination of our love for what we do each day, the quality of our relationships, the security of our finances, the vibrancy of our physical health, and the pride we take in what we have contributed to our communities. Most importantly, it is about how these 5 elements interact." I think I can't agree with him more on this. I think this is perhaps the definition of well-being that I go along with. Distinguished speakers, panelists, dear colleagues from ICIMOD, it gives me a great pleasure to welcome all the distinguished participants to the webinar on understanding well-being in the Hindu Kush Himalayas. Let me also particularly extend warm welcome to our distinguished panelists from Bhutan, India, and Pakistan. I acknowledge the participation of our partner organizations from our regional member countries as well as from overseas. At ICIMOD, we are striving to achieve the long-term holistic vision of man, women, and children of the Hindu Kush Himalaya enjoy improved well-being in a healthy mountain environment. ICIMOD perceives that people's well-being in the Hindu Kush Himalayan region is intrinsically linked with enhanced livelihoods, equity, social and environmental security, resilience and adaptability to environmental, socioeconomic, and climate change. However, it is also felt that we need to move towards a more holistic understanding of well-being for the HKH, which is far more inclusive of psychological and socio-cultural aspects of well-being. Therefore, we are increasing our efforts to include and promote well-being as an integral part of our strategy and action plan. While much was done in the arena of enhancing physical security of our people living in the mountains through our work on atmosphere, cryosphere, biosphere, hydrosphere, and petrosphere, etc., we have so far not given much attention to the psychological, spiritual, and emotional well-being of our people. At this juncture, it may be useful to refer to the UN General Resolution in its 65th session held in 2011. It underscored pursuit of happiness as a final goal and urged the member nations to elaborate measures towards importance or pursuit of well-being and happiness in development with a view to guide public policies and develop new indicators and initiatives. It also accepted the offer of Bhutan to hold a special session on happiness and well-being during its 67th session. The UN General Assembly, in its 67th session in 2013, resolved to bring larger focus on happiness in the lives of people around the world by releasing the report, Well-being and Happiness, a New Paradigm for Sustainable Development, and declaring 20th March as an International Day of Happiness. I am also very happy to note that the work on well-being of life is now spreading in the Hindu Kush Himalayan countries. I understand that ICIMOD's own research work on well-being assessment framework is in its early phase. Sharing of this work and learning from other countries and contexts will go a long way in developing a shared roadmap for our own work and in bringing opportunities for collective actions and ownership. In doing so, we must demystify the fact that many consider happiness or well-being as an abstract phenomenon. For example, Critics of Bhutan's GNH philosophy argue that happiness is an individual choice and vary from person to person depending on their particular situations. This is true, except that as far as I understand, gross national happiness is about creating optimal conditions for as many people as possible to be happy, which are anchored in four pillars. One, sustainable and equitable socioeconomic development. Two, conservation of nature and environment. Three, preservation and promotion of culture and good governance. In effect, this is no different from the Human Development Index that the UN has been adopting. However, there is a need for making it more practical and less academic so that there is better understanding and application of this philosophy. I am happy that we have such a distinguished lineup of speakers who will shed further lights on how we can customize well-being to the Hindu Kush Himalayan region. My colleagues, I understand, has flagged four domains: time use, cultural diversity, community vitality, and psychological well-being for deeper analysis and understanding. I hope that in doing so, we will be able to bring the physical and biological sciences closer to social and metaphysical sciences and advance the study on well-being. We are organizing this webinar as a part of our week-long celebration of the International Mountain Day with the theme A Week for Mountains, and I wish the webinar deliberations all the best of success. Thank you, Namaste, and Tashi Delhi. Over to you, Dr. Tashi.
Dr. Tashi, you're on mute.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Dr. Pema, for setting the context of this webinar and underscoring the need for holistic understanding of well-being that is inclusive of psychological and socio-cultural aspects, particularly in the Hindu Kush Himalayan region. Let me now invite Mr. Brij Rathore, Chief Policy Advisor, to put some light on ICIMOD's work on well-being so far. Over to you, Mr. Rathore.
Bridgie, you're on mute.
I'm sorry. Thank you very much, Dr. Tashi Dorji. I welcome now. I also request my colleague, Dr. Udayan, to please run the slides for me from his end. Udayan, you can now run the slides. And this is, as Dr. Pema was talking about, International Day for Mountains. So we are celebrating mountains for full one week. And I think this well-being and happiness has been one of the key hallmark of the Etkesh Mountains, from west to east, wherever you go. Next, please. Yes, and I think one of the things which Dr. Pema was talking about was, so the question one asks, and you must have been asking as distinguished panelists and also the distinguished participants to this webinar, what is happiness and what is well-being? And this question has been asked from time immemorial also. I think if you look at the responses, which we have been also asking these questions, and broadly these responses will fall in participants to this webinar clusters. What is happiness? Domains, and some of these domains which Dr. Pema talked about. But I think you're looking out in the slides is family, friendship, and community bonding and bridging, psychological angle, inner happiness, healthy environment, and of course the living standards, a lot of economy around it, the good incomes, the cultural angle to the people in the mountains, cultural resilience, which we call a good health. I think it's very, very important. Governance, good governance, and of course you have time to really leisure time, which we should be able to use. And also education and skills which help us to really carve out space for ourselves for meaningful livelihoods. So these are very broadly categorized clusters, but there's more to it actually as you look at the more nuanced understanding. Now what I'm going to do is actually engage everybody out here. I'll request, and I'll also request my colleague Udayan to ask you this question which has been put up there, but this question has got 9 responses in terms of what is happiness and well-being, what we call in 9 domains. So all you have to do is now to just give us some sense of how do you view these 9 domains in terms of priority or significance. So you can order these or reorder. So please do visit the website. You can go to your back to your laptops and go to the www.menti.com and use the code 7132947. It's a very quick survey, only 2 minutes, and we will see the responses. You will see all the 9 domains are listed out there. You can arrange them in the order of priority that you feel, and then we'll see what the score we get in terms of which domain is seen most significant and which is less. But I think right now we just do this exercise. So I request everybody to please go to the www.menti.com. Yeah, thank you very much. We'll just wait for 2 minutes. Okay, we can now stop this. I'll use this slide now, and for those of our friends and participants who would continue to do this, you can also go back to after the session. This voting will remain open till tomorrow morning. So you can still do that, and we will analyze the results. But I think for now we have about 32 responses have already come in. And they just keep on coming, 33, 34, I'm seeing it now. Okay, at some point in time, we'll have to just stop it and just start discussion again. 38, yeah, so 39. Great. Okay, so what are we seeing here right now? If I look at this analysis comes out very strongly, and what Dr. Pema was also mentioning, the psychological, the inner happiness actually is coming out as one of the key dimensions of significance. We're also seeing a lot of good score for family and friendship and the community bonding and bridging, and health coming out very strongly, healthy environment. Now, if you look at all these responses, it doesn't really say that other domains are less significant. I think all domains are significant, and all the domains of this well-being happiness are interrelated. But what we are now seeing is also in the pandemic context, because in pandemic there's a lot of stress has been there. So psychological well-being has been given a very high score. People want to really feel de-stress. The inner peace is now somebody is looking at how we can really be at peace with ourselves, because the pandemic has also created a lot of agitation in the mind. And how this agitation and the de-stressing happens, it happens, as our DG was saying, through the relationships, investing in the relationships, family and friendship, and also the community bonding and bridging. Obviously, the health is now looking at number 3. So I think remaining healthy is so important. So every time you ask somebody, how good are you? You are good. Have good health, well-being. So I think this is, in the pandemic context, I think it's being much more important. Healthy environment, I think, is getting a lot more traction. I think if we keep on asking, obviously the health is more surveys, more responses come, some values might change, but I think what we really want to underscore at this moment is these are the kind of domains, psychological well-being, the family and friendship and community bonding. Cultural elements are also getting good traction somewhere down the line. So these are the domains which contribute to happiness. Not that other domains do not contribute, they also contribute equally, but some of these first three domains actually get sometimes less represented in our own assessment framework. We'll talk about that. Next, please. Udayan, can you move to the next slide? Yeah, as Udayan actually wants to move to the next slide, I think what is important is our own context of Hindu Kush Himalaya. And as we see that well-being and happiness has been the hallmark of Hindu Kush Himalayas, Hindu Kush Himalaya by itself has been very, very significant area in this part of the world. And why? This is what we really want to capture now in the slide. So Udayan is now running the slide for us. So what the slide actually is also going to build upon the unique attributes of Hindu Kush Himalaya. And these attributes actually are very strong, not looking at the population of the Hindu Kush Himalaya, which is about 240 million, but I think if you look at the downstream population of 1.3 billion people, Hindu Kush Himalaya providing unique attributes, energy and water nexus. That kind of security provided by Hindu Kush Himalaya is very, very strong. And yeah, I can see this slide now. Yeah, move on, please. Yeah, yes. And that's why I think, and of course, the repository of biological diversity, not only in terms of the hotspots, but also in terms of endemism, a huge amount of endemism in the Hindu Kush Himalayas, and of course the carbon stocks if you look at. So I think in terms of ecosystem services, this is the place, and how this contributes to overall well-being is very, very significant. So what happens in the HKH mountains? Well-being of HKH mountain and people actually matter. Next, please. And if you look at the things which we have talked about in the Mentimeter survey, the social capital and the cultural diversity, I think, is very strong. You look at these two ladies in the paddy field. So paddy sowing and growing has never been an individual attempt. It always has, I mean, in the time gone by, in the mountains in particular, paddy used to be a community affair. A social capital could be in the fullest possible manifestation when the paddy season comes. Of course, now things are changing very fast with the inroad of the market, but there's still a lot of social capital you can see here. And the cultural diversity, the area being home to about 1,000 living languages. So I think rich biocultural diversity is a hallmark of the Hindu Kush Himalayas. Next, please. Yeah, Udayan, can you move to me? And if you look at what is this, this is Mount Kailash, and the unique HKH is also about to well-being and happiness since time immemorial. This is a sacred spiritual landscape, which what DG was mentioning, and four major religions in this landscape actually look to this wonderful spiritual landscape. So, but I think for other religions and practices, the entire HKH I think is provides so much sacred space for most of the religion the HKH actually practices, or even not practicing that also. There are awe-inspiring landscape which one can really relate with the elements of nature. Next, please. But HKH, this region itself is under the flux, and I think the reason why this is happening is we all know, we have seen many of the presentations, the climate change angle, the demographic change which is happening. So all the drivers of change. Urbanization is happening at a very rapid pace in the mountains. Globalization, forces of globalization combined with climate change. And if you look at the migration, and we have looked at migration, both the angle, migration people going out, and also now people in the pandemic, people coming in. So returning migrants issue, I think. So this is, I think, is a very dynamic situation, and there's change happening. Impacts are very, very obvious. In fact, our own HKH assessment reports has very strongly brought out the impacts, and this report is also available on the website. It can be freely downloadable. And these impacts are seen in terms of poverty, malnutrition in the HKH region, in terms of disasters, the glacier melt, environmental degradation and loss of biodiversity. And in fact, one of the assessments says that if business as usual happens, we might be losing about 2/3 of the endemism, which is so unique to the HKH, endemic species of the plants. What is most significant, I would like to underscore here, is the erosion of socio-cultural values. This is also very significant because we had huge social capital here, and cultural elements are very strong. And then there is If you look at this languages, 1,000 living languages, but if you look at also between Nepal and Bhutan, there's a category of endangered languages. This 10 to 12% worldwide actually happens to be in Bhutan and Nepal, and they are actually seriously threatened. 50% of the 1,000 living languages actually are in the critically endangered category, as per the UNESCO report. And the architecture issues are there, which are now also on a decline. And the depression, suicide, stress. Sikkim is one of the leading state in India, one of the 3 richest state, but also till very recently it was a suicide capital for the country. And of course, you build up on the pandemic-led stress, which has further contributed to this. Dr. Pema talked about this entire issue of HDI, and which is beyond actually income and GDP-led growth and consumption. And of course, you build up not having that as poverty. HDI discourse in 80s brought in this education and health angle also. So the Human Development Index actually brings in a lot more attributes rather than only income and consumption. And then you move on to the multidimensional poverty, where you have 6 attributes which are beyond education and health, but there are other assets also being contributing. And then we have this poverty and vulnerability assessment which brings the mountain context, because mountain specificity is something which we all here in the distinguished participants over here. HKH brings that specific context, which is the mountain context, and that gets added. Then you have poverty and vulnerability in the mountains, and that also brings out some more indicators. Resilience markers is a study which is now happening within ICIMOD and other parts of the HKH and beyond HKH. I think if you look at this entire trajectory, then go on to holistic well-being. Holistic well-being actually builds on all these the previous ones, and look at more complete pictures, including those dimensions which are less covered in other frameworks. Next, please. And I'm not going to details on this, but what is really put up here, the pursuit of well-being and happiness is from, again, go back to Aristotle, and something was there very strongly captured by Aristotle itself. And what happened recently, I think, would be of interest. In GNH, as Dr. Pema talked about, when the Bhutan, the 4th king, he got this GDP from GDP to GNH, gross national happiness. I think that triggered, and luckily, I think it's for the HKH region, Bhutan being the HKH member country, it was a leadership role. And then I think it really set the ball rolling. So we have 2011 UN resolution happening in the 65th session, which Dr. Pema talked about. And then the United Nations General Assembly actually also declared 20th March as International Day for Happiness. So I think this entire focus worldwide on the happiness and well-being, the research, and this started from there, and then World Happiness Report started coming since then, 2012. And every year you get this World Happiness Report, which uses that ladder and 6, and then the scoring happens, and the differences are explained based on the 6 attributes. Then OECD policy 2013, and then within our HKH region and Asian region, something significant started happening, which our colleague Dr. Tashi was talking about. United Arab Emirates Global Dialogue on Happiness now happens since 2017. This is also a very important event. And now we also have 2017 first Global Happiness Policy Report. So I think there's a lot of interest happening. So if I look at the publications, say 30 years earlier, and then and now last 10 years, every year you get over 200 publications on happiness and well-being. So this is very significant. So there's a lot more traction happening. And of course, we talked about, Dr. Pema talked about the vision of ICIMOD on how we look at improved well-being as in a healthy mountain environment of the men and women and children. Next, please. So what is our research here? We actually build on the 9 domains GNH framework of Bhutan, and these domains we picked up in the Mentimeter as well. Next, please. And we have been asking 2 research questions. One is, what is the well-being? What constitutes well-being? And we are asking in the different context. And so what we have looked at is 3 to 4 domains. We have gone deeper with our research. We did 3 pilots, which our colleague Sabarni is going to discuss these results from the research. But we also have this diagnostic tool developed, which is 11 domain tool, which is a quick, not I'll say dirty, but a quick assessment of well-being. But I think this is captured in a very short spell of time. Then you can go deeper into it. We are looking at the level of satisfaction and sufficiency for each of the domain and the indicators. So accordingly, the questions have been framed. And we are using mixed methods, which includes qualitative as well as quantitative, and focus group discussion using the semi-structured interviews, and quantitative surveys use both individual and household surveys. Next, please. Next, please, Udayan. Yeah. So what is the early direction from the research? Early direction from the research is like this, that the three well-being domains, particularly the psychological well-being, which is inner happiness, the cultural angle, and the community, which is the family, friends, and community bonding and bridging, actually we have figured out that it is very significant contributor to the overall well-being of the people in the mountains. So this research actually, if these domains and the indicators, if used with other tools of research, then I think one can capture overall well-being. And sometimes we have to do a lot of contextualizations. We have adapted, that's why we have adapted this 9 domain framework from GNH. For instance, I give you an example, is like karma is put up in the psychological domain because Buddhist society, the karma is there. So we will, how do we change this? So we say spiritual, but then spiritual also, when you go to the rural setting, it doesn't really difficult for the animators to translate. So we kept on asking the question, and we say, so what happens being spiritual? So the inner peace. So I think some of the indicators actually are built around the inner peace. How do you achieve that inner peace? Migration is one of the key attributes which we found in the community vitality and community resilience. So migration, there are a lot of variables on migrations have been indicated. So the indicator of migration has been added. So I think likewise, the customization of the well-being framework has happened, and this provides context to the varied context of HKH. This is very, very significant for us. We are looking at the gender, young and old, youth. We are looking upstream, downstream. Even the nearest place in Godavari, we are looking at the upstream of villages like Chapakharka and downstream like Godavari Kunda. And we did this assessment. So what happens, how they look at the well-being and happiness, how people in the downstream look at what values, who values what. And urban, rural also, I think, is very significant. We also feel that in the early directions that subjective well-being, we are measuring subjective well-being is a big challenge. This also requires continuous improvisation, and we are really thankful to our collaborating institutions who are helping us to really keep on improvising on this. One of the last things I'd like to say is that the happiness well-being survey, as we looked at, if it is a well-being and happiness, then the survey method itself should be able to bring that joy of co-creation rather than survey fatigue. And we have been very concerned about this, because if you develop a very elaborate instrument, survey instrument, and go to the households and individuals, you run into a problem. So we have, so the constant challenge has been how we create a HKH well-being framework using methods which are less demanding, rigorous, but I think there's joy of co-creation can be maintained. So I think we have to just do a tightrope walking on that. So that's all from my side. I had a last slide which just was trying to put up saying that thank you, but before that there was a shloka from Sanskrit which said the mountains are the abode of happiness, and it was say in Sanskrit, Geriste Parvata Himbanto Varanyan Te Prithvi Syon Mastu Ajito Shakto Ahato Adestham Prithvi. Pleasant be thy hills, thy mountain, and snow-clad peaks. Along with thy woods, I remain unslain, unhurt, and unvanquished. So mountains with the snow-clad peaks, along with the forests and biodiversity and other values, will bring happiness for me. So thank you very much. Over to you, Dr. Tashidorji.
Thank you, Mr. Rathore, for sharing ICIMOD's experience on well-being and happiness. I think what is coming out from your presentation is this non-conventional domains of such as psychological well-being, community vitality and cultural resilience are very significant components of well-being. But it comes with its own challenges in terms of defining indicators and trying to quantify them. So I think, therefore, I think this is the right moment now. So let's now move on to the panel session and deliberate on different domains and measurements of well-being and happiness. I think, as I introduced earlier, we will have 3 panel speakers and then some question and answer sessions. Before I do that, I will first of all like to request our distinguished participants. I can already see some comments in the chat box, to please kindly provide your valuable feedbacks and also questions in the chat box. And where possible, please direct your question to the specific panelist. So towards the end at the Q&A session, I'll try to, depending on the time, I may be able to give opportunity to some of you, to speak. So with this, may I now then invite Mr. Karma Wangdi from Bhutan. Karma, I think Bhutan has adopted the goal of gross national happiness over gross domestic product since early 1970s. And Bhutan was also instrumental in initiating the United Nations resolution for proclaiming 20th March as the International Day of Happiness. So my question to you, Karma, is what did we learn so far from Bhutan's journey in terms of mainstreaming the gross national happiness philosophy into public policy objectives? Over to you, Karma.
Good afternoon, Doctor. Thank you so much, Doctor. Your Excellency, the Director General, Dr. Pema Jamso, Deputy Director General, Dr. Iklai Sharma, distinguished audience from the region and beyond, I would like to wish you a very warm good afternoon. I would also like to thank the ICIMOD for organizing this webinar and providing me the opportunity to share about Bhutan's experiences in mainstreaming the gross national happiness philosophy into practical public policies. The promotion of well-being and happiness for its citizens in Bhutan and the Bhutanese history of governance is not something new. It existed since 18th century as indicated by the 1729 Legal Code of Bhutan, which mandated the government to promote the well-being and happiness for its citizens. The code is specifically stated that if the government cannot create well-being and happiness for its people, then there's no purpose for the government to exist. It's a very strong statement from the legal code. The use of happiness as a planned objective in modern Bhutan has its origin in His Majesty the 4th Duke Gelbo's Royal Decree dated 1986, issued to the then Planning Commission of Bhutan, which commanded that the basis for the evaluation of the achievements of the 6th five-year plan is to see whether people enjoy happiness and comfort at the end of the 5-year plan. So therefore, to measure how well Bhutan performs by the GNH yardstick rather than by the conventional economic yardstick, a multidimensional measure of well-being and happiness was developed by the Center for Bhutan Studies. It is based on a framework of 9 domains of GNH. The 9 domains of GNH are psychological well-being, health, time use and balance, basically how you use your time in a balanced way, education, good governance, cultural diversity and resilience, community vitality, ecological diversity, and living standard, which is the conventional economic domain. The GNH model development approach in Bhutan places equal importance to all 9 domains of GNH. Therefore, software domains like psychological well-being, time use, community vitality, cultural diversity, which were largely neglected by conventional approach to development elsewhere, are being given equal priority in public policy formulation in Bhutan with that of the conventional domains such as living standard, health, and education, which have been in the public policy radar for quite a long time. As of now, Bhutan has conducted 3 rounds of nationwide surveys on GNH in 2008, then followed by in 2010, and latest in 2015. The next round of national GNH survey is scheduled to be held in early 2021. We are in the middle of preparing the field survey and then also negotiating the budget from the government and the international partners. The finding from the GNH survey, besides actually measuring the well-being and happiness of Bhutanese people across time and space, also serves as a 4 major public policy uses in Bhutan, besides other numerous uses. First, GNH index and some of the domain indicators and sub-indicators are directly used as a baseline and target indicator for Bhutan's 5-year national plans. At the national level, the 5-year plan is guided by national targets and key results. In the current 5-year plan, that's the 12th 5-year plan, 17 baseline or targets are drawn directly from GNH indicators such as sufficiency in mental health, community safety, community vitality, and so on. The composite GNH index, that is the single number GNH index constructed using 9 domains, 33 indicators, and 124 sub-indicators, is used as a overall national baseline and a target for evaluation of 12 5-year plan. Second, GNH index is also used as a weighted criterion for the allocation of resources to the local governments composed of 20 districts and 4 urban municipalities in Bhutan, followed by 205 counties or geoks at the lowest tier in the vertical organization of country's administrative setup. Currently, a total of 15% of the capital grants for districts and urban municipalities and 10% of the capital grants for counties or geoks is based on the results of GNH survey findings. A district or county with higher GNH survey receives relatively lower capital budget, whereas counties or districts with higher GNH index value receives relatively lower capital budget and vice versa. The third, GNH indicators are used for developing GNH policy screening tool with the aim to align new policies with the GNH principles. GNH policy screening tool is used for assessing and screening any new policies or programs to assess their compatibility with GNH ideals and values. A new policy obtains government approval only if the proposed policy is found to be GNH compatible based on the assessment conducted by not less than 15 heterogeneously selected experts. The current version of GNH screening tool has 33 indicators directly drawn from the GNH survey. The indicator used in screening tool includes health, how the people use time, access to legal resources, learning and education, values, governance, and environment, among others. Finally, GNH domains indicators are also now used as a framework for assessing the performance of business enterprises in Bhutan. A tool called GNH Business Assessment Tool was developed to assess the performance of business enterprises in a more holistic way by including social, environmental aspects in the assessment of business performances. The GNH Business Assessment Tool is an approach to evaluate how business operations are carried out by taking into consideration the workers' well-being, which is often neglected by going for the financial reward, as well as consideration for business procedures and practices more reflective of societal, environmental, and community objectives. I was also asked to share something about how Bhutan measures the subjective well-being. When I actually thought about how to answer this question, I actually had business procedures and practices. The first question is how happy are you? Which means how do you measure your happiness? What do you base on? Do you base on the meal that you have this lunch, the amount of interaction that you have with your family member this morning that actually influences your happiness, or something that is very long term, that is implanted in your mental state, such as the long-term relationship that you share with your community. So basically there are two questions, and how it is measured. How happy are you? How do you measure your happiness? So I was asked to share about how the subjective well-being and happiness is being assessed in Bhutan, including the challenges that we faced while measuring the subjective happiness. However, at this point of time, I would also like to state here that the word happiness in gross national happiness does not mean the happiness commonly understood in the Western literature, which is associated with affective reaction to life events such as being angry now and then happy little moments later, or angry now and being happy little later. So that's not what actually is measured in GNH. GNH measures some more concrete, more pronounced, more lasting sort of experiences that people have. In case of happiness GNH, what constitutes a happy life is predefined in terms of GNH domains. That is, we have 9 domains, then 33 indicators, 134 different conditions that people actually need to have in their life. The happiness of a person in GNH is evaluated against these sort of standards. So happiness in GN is a little bit different from happiness that is basically understood in the Western literature. So the psychological well-being domain, therefore, in GNH includes subjective well-being measures related to reflective cognitive evaluations, which are quite a longer term, such as life satisfaction, considering your health, education, time use, your work-life balance, the relationship you share with your family members and community, and effective reactions to life events such as positive and negative emotions, which are quite fleeting and changing quite frequently. So it includes measures such as both reflective cognitive evaluation as well as effective. So this is what the GNH actually means when we talk about happiness in GNH. With this, I would like to thank the organizers for giving us the opportunity to share. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Excellent, Karma. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Karma. Maybe I may ask our participants, thank you so much, distinguished participants. I think we have more than 100 participants. This event is also being live streamed through YouTube. So thank you for joining this. And I have one question to all of you. Karma was just asking, how happy are you? It's not easy, right? So I hope all of you are happy and enjoying. Please continue to stay with us. We have more interesting panel speakers coming up. So Karma, I think, thank you again for your valuable insights in deepening the application of gross national happiness philosophy into practice. I think we can see clearly that the GNH framework is being mainstreamed in the 5-year planning process, basically to determine the resource allocation, I guess, and also for policy screening tools, and also lately for the gross national happiness for business. So however, we also understand from your deliberation that methods for measuring well-being and happiness are still evolving. And this is perhaps the right moment for us to bring in Professor Priyadashi Patnaik. Professor, may I then ask you this question? What are the current advances in the application of science of happiness in developing happiness index? And what are your reflections on the methods for measuring happiness, especially for the domains of psychological well-being? Over to you, Professor.
Thank you very much, Tasiji. My gratitude to ICIMOD and the eminent guests who are here. Would it be possible for your technical team to share my slides, or do you want me to share the slides myself?
Udayan, can you chip in, Udayan?
Yeah, Professor Patnaik, it'll be fine if you can share the slides on your end. If you have any difficulty, then I'll do it from mine.
Just a moment. I'll just check it out. Give me a moment. You will have to give me a moment to open my slides. And yeah, my slide is open, but let me see if it is able to display it. Okay, let me go to my slide. Okay. Are you able to see my slides?
I think it is coming. Yes, go ahead, please.
Thank you.
Not really.
Yeah.
Professor Patnaik, we're just seeing the folder, but not the slide. Do you want me to run the slides for you?
Yeah, that would be better. Thank you very much. Because there seems to be a problem. Well,
yeah, it'll just come.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Do you see the slides now?
Yes.
Yeah, I can see the slides. Thank you very much. So my apologies for the delay. I would request you to quickly move on to the next slide. And the issues that have been raised by Tasiji are fairly complex. So I would like to take the help of a few diagrams and a few bullet points to elaborate. When we're asking about the current development of the happiness indices in different countries, different states and cities, I would like to say that there are quite a number of issues which one has to look at. For instance, how do you define happiness? And Karmaji talked about it. The data size which can be used, methodologies to be adopted, how much of weightage is to be given to the different domains that we were talking about, what to measure in terms of which domains to be identified, and technologies used. So in that context, what I would like to do is I would request you to change the slide so that I can move on to the next point. Yes. Can I request you to move to the next slide, please? Yes. So when we're looking at these definitions, I said that we talk about definitions in terms of health and happiness, prosperity, quality of life, and a number of such important points. But the issues that we have are issues related to a wide spectrum of areas, like what exactly is meant by happiness and various other things related to the points which are being made here. So the definition itself creates significant issues. Now, if we move on to the next slide, please. You see that when we started working in the field of Madhya Pradesh and New Town City, we started looking at a variety of global indicators. And we found that a huge number of these were available across the globe, and they dealt with a number of different issues. And these different issues were related to very interesting domains that are kind of elaborated in the next slide. So if you can just move on to the next one, I will share with you. See, the key domains, as you can see over here, deal with economic prosperity, generosity, health, governance, and a number of such related areas. But if you're focusing, you will find that subjective well-being, relationships, and spirituality, culture find key significance. And we found that this was reiterated when we started looking at the data which came in from Madhya Pradesh. The next slide, please. But then the other issue which came up was how to integrate it together and how to put it together. So in our case, what we did was we started putting all these things together by using the standard methods, taking the example of what Bhutan did, what some of the other countries did. But after that, since then, a number of interesting things have happened. And when we are talking about large surveys in countries, we are talking about big data, we are talking about biofeedback, we are talking about face emotions, and a number of things. So I would just quickly like to elaborate that today, other than surveys, new methodologies have emerged. For instance, one of them happens to be sentiment analysis, where we have Twitter data and Facebook data, which are taken. And as Karmaji was talking about, their positive and negative effect can be identified from the big data analysis. However, meaningfulness is a component which still is something which is very difficult to identify. Hitachi uses wristbands and tags where the daily activities of the people are monitored, and over a period of time, their routines or lack of routines in a time series analysis gives some ideas about how they have been performing. There have been other studies, and even in IIT we have done this as a prototype, is where face emotions is something which is measured. So a student is walking into the class, the face and the particular emotion at that point of time is mapped. So if you're taking the face emotion for the entire period of a year, you might find that exam time is a time when people are generally unhappy, and after the post-exam time is perhaps a time which is generally happy. So technology is coming in a big way, and probably in the future we have to rethink the way that we measure different aspects of happiness. But then the challenges which stay are, as I said with you a little earlier, entirely different, which is how to define happiness. So when we are talking about these aspects, I will quickly respond to the second question, that what we are looking at in the context of psychological happiness, a number of issues, as I've said here, are indicated. I will just touch upon 3 or 4 of them. We can move on to the next slide, please. See, in a study which was done by us in an unpublished paper, we found that even if you're looking at the Indian context, there are a huge number of ways that happiness has been defined. And if you broadly categorize them, you find that they either talk about a peak experience, which is intense, or you're talking about a short-term experience, which is for a short period of time, or you're talking about a long-term experience, you're talking about instead of a peak, you are talking about a low diminutive series of sense of well-being. You are talking about something which is externally driven or is driven spiritually inside. It is either a religious experience or a secular experience. So many dimensions of happiness are there. What exactly to capture? But nonetheless, as I shared with you earlier, psychological well-being, and as was indicated by Karmaji, has a few important components, and the next slide would elaborate on them. So you have life satisfaction, positive feelings, and negative feelings. So how meaningful is my life is one important cognitive component, whereas the affect or the emotion component is what are the positive experiences I have and what are the negative experiences we have. Now you see that in this particular context, we have been told that there can be internal causes as well as external causes which drive our happiness. But we are aware of the fact that these are the dimensions which need to be mapped. And interesting things emerge when you start looking at psychological well-being, because psychological well-being is strongly correlated or linked with 2 or 3 other dimensions, which I will be quickly sharing with you in the next slide. So you see that one of them happens to be relationships, and the other one is the component of community. What in fact we find is that when we started exploring psychological well-being, we found that a very significant aspect of it was related to how you related to others, your spouse, your friends. In the literature in the West, there is a huge amount of emphasis on husband-wife relationship, friends relationship, siblings relationship, but hardly any major work which deals with communities and relationship with other members. And in those contexts, we found that a number of key components were related to them, like a sense of identity, the way that somebody related to the other person, the give and take, and a number of such things. The last point I would like to say is that there are new technologies which are coming up, and even some of us are working on these areas related to the points I made, where apps and other things are coming in either for self-assessment, which is where what we are talking about all this while when we are talking about surveys, but also for assessment, which is done more objectively using advanced technology. So if questions come, I would probably elaborate on that. Thank you for now.
Thank you so much, Professor. Excellent. Delighted to hear your response. Before going further, I think there are so many questions coming in. Please do type in more questions. I can see questions from Said Ji, Geeta Ji, Sonam Tashi, and Tinle Children. Karma, I think these questions are directed to you. Would you please check into the chat box, and where possible, if you can also give a short response in the chat box. Later, we may not have time, but I'll try to find time. But in case there is no time, I would appreciate, Karmaji, if you could start giving response spontaneously. So again, once again, Professor, thank you so much. I think for sharing your insightful experience from developing a very practical tools, I think, to measure happiness index, and especially on the psychological well-being. And I think we are also really delighted and encouraged, actually, by your research on the use of latest technologies and apps, in measuring well-being and happiness. I think this will go a long way, in taking this initiative forward. Now, I guess this brings us to another aspect of well-being and happiness, the quality of life. It's so exciting. I think the discussion is so exciting. So to elaborate on this topic, may I then invite Mr. Shahzad Ali Khan, my good friend from Pakistan. So my question to you, Mr. Khan, is how important are the values and norms such as cultural resilience and community support systems in the mountain communities. How can we strengthen its integration in the policies and plans? So over to you, Mr. Khan.
Thank you very much, Tashiji, and good afternoon to all. So, thank you very much, ICIMOD, for providing us with this opportunity to share our thoughts on quality of life assessment and contribute to the discussion. So, looking at your question, it is very relevant questions, especially in the context of Pakistan, in the context of our Han Development Network. So let me start with that what is our Han Development Network is doing, particularly for quality of life, improving the quality of life of the people in this mountain region. So our Han Development Network, which has been supporting the communities living in the region of high mountain, which are obviously Himalaya, Hind Kush, and Karakoram. And it is very interesting that the core program area lies in the junction of these three mountain regions. So we usually call it northern Pakistan, or we call it Gilgit-Baltistan and Chitral. So a number of Acadian agencies, including our Han Foundation, our Han Rural Support Program, our Han Education Service, our Han Health Service, and our Han Agency for Habitat. So under this network, they have been working with the local communities with a primary objective to improve the quality of life of the people living within the scattered, resource-poor and accessible villages in northern Pakistan. So the communities have strong traditional institutions to help them cope with the difficult economic conditions and ensure social protection. So my response here is to, look at the link between the quality of life assessment itself as a technical assessment and the programming link with these quality of life assessment indicators, and then the importance of the culture, resilience, the norms, and the tradition who have been contributing to the socio-economic development of this area, improving the quality of life. So the Acadian institution, particularly the Han Rural Support Program, which is one of the frontline development program supported by Acadian, a number of agencies, development organizations, including ICIMOD, that has been focused on building the capacities of the local institution so they can take initiatives for their development and based on their own desires. That is important because we are not top-down agencies, we are bottom-up agencies. So AKRSP's development model has been built on the century-long community-based in traditional systems of livelihood, mutual cooperation, and social support system. So in this mountain region, northern Pakistan, so the focus of AKRSP has been on the building of the capacities of the communities and transforming their traditional institution into support mechanism. The model has been successful in terms of community-owned and community-managed sustainable development process. And you can see that in Pakistan, the model has been replicated, and beyond Pakistan, also this model has been appreciated and replicated by a number of institutions. And our Han Foundation has been doing a number of projects based on this community-based model. So in Pakistan, a big network of rural support program exemplifies the model of AKRSP, which was a result of the policy experiment of Han Development Network in northern Pakistan. If I look at your question, the question well reflects on the development model of Acadian. And it is also important to see that all the multi-inputs program, when we say multi-input, so it includes education, health, infrastructure, energy, water and sanitation, and many more. So these multi-inputs program of Acadian are community-driven and led by the community institutions, which draw their strengths from the strong cultural resilience, social values and norms, and a strong traditional mechanism for mutual cooperation and interdependency. So in this high mountain area, survival is a challenge for the communities with resource poverty and inaccessibility. The social capital within the socioeconomic settings plays an important role in identifying real and felt needs of the communities, suggests feasible intervention with greater community ownership and community contribution, and execute projects to reduce the gaps related to the quality of life of the people. So the multi-input programs are very much aligned with the quality of life framework with key indicators related to, you can say, income, accessibility, social protection, and happiness. So when we talk about quality of life assessment, the academian takes a long-term perspective, usually working in countries over decades. And so quality of life assessments are designed to provide an overview of how people's lives are changing over time. The main aim is to analyze and adjust academian interventions in the light of the findings. Therefore, the institutional aspects, which are heavily driven by local culture norms, tradition, values, and social wealth, are incorporated in the assessment process. If I briefly talk about the methodologies we adopt under quality of life assessments, the method includes both quantitative and qualitative assessment through cross-sectional data, and also we are using the time series data. So the main domain includes as the traditional domains, which are climate change, natural disasters, then household economy. Usually we look at the household characteristics, food security, income, housing, savings, debt, and poverty. And migration, which is important part, because in mountain area migration, both in migration and out migration, has been one of the major aspects of the development. Then built and natural environment, where we look at the basic needs, for example, energy, water, sanitation, and connectivity. Then health education, which is obviously important part of the quality of life assessment, where we look at the antenatal care, for example, medical facilities, nutrition, enrollment, literacy, etc. But the important aspect that came to the assessment was non-traditional areas we have been discussing since during this discussion, was new domains which included in the quality of assessment, quality of life assessment process, was social and cultural life. So where we incorporated the perception of the physical safety of the people, trust on the community members, social protection, participation in community groups and association, gender and generational relation. One of the important findings I remember of the last quality of life assessment was on the generational relations, and huge programming adjustment was made to academian programs under this generational relation, and which was also linked to the migration. So availability of leisure activity and substance abuse, which has been one of the issues in this mountain area. Another domain was voice and representation, which was built on influencing the power of the community members, of influencing community leaders, representation at community institution, and participation in the decision-making process, which is the core mandate of academian institutions to empower the people. And then overall quality of life. So there was a question about overall quality of life assessment, how the people feel, how the community perceive. So this included perception about positive and negative changes in their life, top problems in the community, aspiration for the future, and many more qualitative indicators. So if I would conclude on this question, that the policy experiment of this community-driven and social and economic development is very much part of the academian policy development process, which are then translated into multi-input development program based on quality of life indicators. So it means that the quality of life assessment is necessary for the baseline as part of the evaluation of the multi-input programs in the ring-fence geographies. So the new the innovative thing was to include all these qualitative indicators, which I mentioned to the quality of life assessment. So it is not only measuring the socioeconomic conditions of the people, assuming that when there is socioeconomic development, the quality of people is improved. It is not. So we have to have a very dedicated and comprehensive assessment system to look at the quality of life of the people, though it is very difficult, as our earlier speakers mentioned, but technically it is possible to measure some of the key indicators around quality of life assessment. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Excellent, my friend, Mr. Khan. That was a very interesting response from your side. I can see that a lot of questions are being raised in the chat box, and simultaneously, I'm also grateful to the panelists for providing your feedback and response. Please continue to do so. These are very valuable to enrich our framework. Let me also acknowledge, I could see in the chat, Professor Jinfeng Dongdu from China. Thank you for your wonderful comments, Professor. It's quite late in China, but you managed to stay online. Thank you for your comments. So, Mr. Khan, I think it has been it's really excellent, for sharing your experience from quality of life assessment. Certainly, the emphasis of family relationship, community support systems, low voice, and less representation, as it is coming out from your presentation, they are essential elements that have implication on the well-being and happiness. And your efforts to quantify these parameters and integrate in the planning as well as in the monitoring process, I think low voice and less learning. Thank you so much. I guess I think time is just right there, so I may not request participants to raise your hand at the moment. The answers are being provided, but I can also see online my colleague from the Planet Happiness. Dr. Paul Rogers, I think I see you online. Dr. Roger is the co-founder and director, Planet Happiness. May I request Dr. Roger to please unmute your mic and put your video on, and kindly I request to make your remarks. A brief remark from your end will be appreciated. Dr. Roger.
Thank you very much, Tashi. Hello, good afternoon, everybody. It's wonderful to be with you. Joining this wonderful seminar, and I'd like to thank Tashi for asking me to say a few words. I'm actually a tourism planner. I have worked in Bhutan on many occasions over the last 20 years almost, and was privileged to work in the country when Bhutan's first Prime Minister was working with the UN on the resolution on happiness, and I was fortunate to be invited to the high-level meeting on happiness and well-being at the UN in New York, where I met so many influencers and change makers from around the world working in this well-being agenda. And among those was a colleague that I'm now working with, who is the co-founder of Planet Happiness, Laura Musikansky. But unfortunately, she's in Seattle and it's the middle of the night there. So I'm speaking instead of Laura. Laura was invited by Dasho Karma Ura and the Center for Bhutan Studies to look at the way Bhutan is subjectively measuring well-being, and using the survey that Bhutan uses. I understand that they have something like 300 or so questions. And so my colleague reviewed the approach that Bhutan was taking and looked at other measures that other countries around the world are using to measure individual happiness. And so through looking at what the UK is doing with satisfaction with life and looking what other countries are doing, measuring happiness and engagement with work, she reviewed all this and came up with a happiness index survey that is now available online. It has 11 domains, and it takes an individual 10 to 15 minutes to complete the online survey. We have it in 24 languages at the moment. And when I first interacted with Laura with this work, it occurred to us both that what we could do is deploy the survey in tourist destinations. Now, we all know that tourism is supposed to be a vehicle for development. It's an engine of change and growth. And the nice thing is with the Happiness Index survey online is that once it's completed, the survey taker gets a scorecard that allows to compare their well-being score across these 11 domains with every other survey taker. So if we deploy this in a tourist destination, you can therefore get a well-being score compared to all other survey takers for a visitor destination. And then the interesting thing here becomes when you take away the comparison of those 11 domains with everybody else, and you stack the scores from low to high, you can see where the community is deficient, and then you can use these one scorecards to say to the local community, well, what should tourism be doing as a vehicle for change and growth and development in these deficient areas? How should tourism be developed to strengthen those deficient areas? And in this way, we can use tourism as a vehicle for development to strengthen destination communities. We can also engage residents in conversations about how happiness and well-being are measured, which creates traction for enlightened policies that are coming in by, governments around the world picking up this well-being agenda. So that's the approach that we're taking to globalize this agenda. And be delighted to share more on that with anybody who is interested. I'll share in the chat box the link to the survey that we're using there, Tashi. Yeah, we would welcome the opportunity to engage with you to help and assist with comparing. The nice thing is about the Happiness Index survey is it uses questions that countries around the world are using. So it gives the opportunity to share culture, stories of culture and well-being across continents and cultures. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Roger. Thank you. That's great. We look forward to getting more input from your organization as well as from your dedicated and committed team. So let's look forward to working together. I think we really need to share a lot of experiences. And thank you also for posting that stuff on the chat box. And I wish to recognize several speakers. I think actually, they posted a lot of good comments on the chat box. My own mentor, I could see some comments from Dr. Rajan Kotru. Thank you, Dr. Rajan, for bringing that insight. And several others that I would like to request my panelists to please respond and give some respond to the questions in the chat box itself as we are running out of time. So I think thank you, distinguished panelists and participants who have asked many relevant questions in the chat box. This has been a very exciting and captivating round of deliberations. The discussion has been very rich and probably is a bit difficult for me to summarize, but I was trying to pick up some 4 points from this panel discussion. Number one, what is coming out very clear is there's a growing interest in the pursuit of developing holistic development approach beyond economic model. Number two, I think what we are also seeing is approaches for measuring well-being and happiness are varied depending on the context across geographies and culture and socioeconomic settings. Number three, we also see that applications of technologies and use of latest apps for measuring happiness index, including complex domains such as psychological well-being, are gaining momentum. And finally, I think as we all agree, what is coming out is collaboration across borders among different institutions and individuals involved in this endeavor will add value in better harmonizing the methods to measure well-being and happiness for better policy uptake. So this is a few points that I could summarize from the panel session. So with this, let us now move to the next segment of our event today. Dear participants, please hang on. And I think there's more interesting topics coming up, and we will be on time. So in order to share ICIMOD's draft progress on wellbeing framework, let me now invite Ms. Sabharni Tulhadar to make her presentation. Over to you, Sabharni. The screen is yours. Sabharni, are you there?
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Sabharni, can you make it full screen?
Okay. Has it come through?
Not yet, Sabharni. Can you try doing that again?
Okay. While it is loading, so good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm here. Can you see it now then?
Yes, Sabharni, it has come now.
Okay, thank you. So I'm here on behalf of my team to present our well-being assessment framework. So so I'll begin with the well-being assessment framework, followed by our field findings, the study areas that we have done, our piloting, the methodologies that we use, the findings, and the reflection analysis from those findings. So well-being assessment, ICIMOD's long-term vision is to have men, women, and children of the Hindu Kush Himalayan enjoy improved well-being in a healthy mountain environment. In order to achieve a holistic well-being, we have come up with a well-being assessment framework that consists of 11 domains. These domains interact with one another and make up our individual and communal well-being. So these domains are time use, cultural diversity, community vitality, psychological well-being, health, education, good governance, ecological diversity, living standard, resilience, and gender. So as mentioned earlier, this well-being assessment framework is derived from the GNH. We have contextualized this so that it can be more applicable to all the countries in our region. We had also added a few domains such as the resilience and gender, which we think are very important to our context, and these indicators will be integrated within the other domains itself. So the objective of creating this framework was first to understand what well-being means for the people in the HKH region. Second one is to understand the sociocultural and psychological aspects that influence people's perception of the well-being. Third, to understand and improve well-being of people in the HKH. And finally, there are many frameworks that are already existing. So we want to create a framework that can work alongside these frameworks to create a holistic picture, a better holistic picture of well-being. So the methodology that we used for this assessment is a mixed method approach where we use both qualitative and quantitative data collection. In qualitative data collection method, we have basically put questions based on the indicators of the aforementioned framework. The questionnaire itself is administered at an individual level, and the individuals are chosen based on 4 main groups, which is age, gender, ethnicity, and occupation. Also based the group categorization is also modified based on the location that we carry out the study. The second one is the qualitative measures. The qualitative measures consist of focus group discussions, community meetings, and key informant interviews. All these are done based on semi-structured guidelines, which are again derived from the framework itself. So what we did was we created a template survey questionnaire tool basically and the methodology, and we tested it out in two places, one in Nepal and other one in India. Ward number 2 and 3 in Godavari in Nepal and in Bas and Zajurali villages in Pithoragarh in India. So over 100 individual interviews were carried out along with qualitative interviews, focus group discussions, and key informant interviews. So these are some just general findings of what from the information that we collected. So here this figure shows the level of satisfaction on various aspects of their lives, and as you can see, majority of the people are satisfied with family relationship, and they are less satisfied with work-life balance, major occupation, and living standard. So when we reflected back on these surveys or studies carried out, these surveys were actually carried out prior to mid 2019. So what we found out was, not surprisingly, basic needs, gas, pas, kapas, or which is food, shelter, and clothing, are very important, alongside access to facilities and services. So this was quite expected, but what we also found was that factors such as self-satisfaction, ability to enjoy freedom, equal rights and opportunities, and good relationship with family members and community members was also equally important, as well as their connection to the culture and spiritual aspects. So this actually reaffirmed the need for us to look into these factors, which are often really not given much focus to when we are doing any surveys to improve the well-being of people. So keeping that in mind, we moved forward. But one of the challenges that we faced was that we found the tools that we were using and the methods that we were using to be very intensive and very complicated and time-consuming. So we thought we needed to have a tool which was simple, usable, and added value at the same time. So we came up with two tools from that well-being assessment framework and questionnaires. So first is a rapid assessment tool, and the second one is the domain-specific tool. First, when we go to the rapid assessment tool, it covers all the 11 domains from the well-being assessment framework, but it just focuses on key specific indicators within those domains so as to give a snapshot of the well-being of the study area that we're doing. And the rapid assessment, again, uses both a mix of qualitative and quantitative. So the qualitative aspect is to complement the quantitative information that is being gathered. So we tested out this tool and the methodology in Nama Buddha, which is in Nepal. So what our findings was that, similar to the other ones, when you looked at the level of life satisfaction with the various aspects, people were more satisfied with family relationship and less satisfied with the economic components of their lives. Also, we wanted to check in terms of male and female if there was a difference in the level of satisfaction perceived. So we did find that men tended to have higher level of satisfaction with these various elements compared to that of women. Now I want to focus more on the health aspect here. So where we see there was a gap between the health of this level of satisfaction they faced between men and women in health. So we thought maybe it is due to the access of service facilities that they're facing this. So we looked at the more objective kind of information, and when we compared this, we saw that women actually felt they had a higher access to health facilities compared to men. So there must be some other factor. So there was really no significantly strong relationship between the level of satisfaction they felt with health and health facilities. Next, we looked at how they reported their health. So when we looked at the self-reported health status, we find that female in general tended to have feel more has reported more poor health compared to that of men. Now, the self-reported health status comprises of two things. One is the mental health, the second one is the physical health. So next, what we did was we looked at the number of unhealthy mental as well as physical days for both men and women. In general, men tended to have less number of unhealthy days compared to women. So this might also be to the fact that women, women in general tended to have more working hours compared to men, even though the number of rest or sleep hours were the same for both of them. What I want to highlight now is that if you look at the number of unhealthy days for men and women, you find that the mental health days for women is very high compared to the physical health for female compared to the men. So this is also reflected in the responses where female reported a higher number of mental health issues that they faced. So this again highlights the point that we need to look beyond beyond what we are focusing now, and also look at the psychological, mental aspects and other relationship aspects of our findings when we are looking at well-being. So basically, when we go back to the rapid assessment, we find that it provides a good snapshot of the individual as well as communal well-being, and also the indicators do provide a good representation. But overall, the rapid assessment needs to be used with the qualitative tool, and because of the short nature of it, we cannot do detailed analysis of it. So this, which brings us to the domain-specific tools. The domain-specific tools focus on 4 domains: psychological, cultural diversity, community vitality, and time use. So this tool is actually created so that it can be used alongside another pre-existing survey tools, which are usually carried out when you're carrying interventions or any kind of programs. So it is an add-on kind of thing so that it can add value to the survey that is being carried out. So we actually created this domain-specific tool and tested it out in the Lakpa Norpu Chiok in Bhutan. A survey had previously been done in this area under the RMS initiative, ICIMOD's RMS initiative. And this survey was basically focused on more on socioeconomic aspects, focusing on organic agriculture. So we used this survey around October this year, and what we found was that what we found out was it provided a deeper information to the survey. It added actually quite a lot of value to the survey that had already been carried out, and also it helps us in validating information. So the survey itself was carried out at a household level. So some of the information that was given was being done by the household head, which was usually a main member. So that means that the female perspective might not have been adequately captured or accurately captured. So by using this additional framework, we actually see that the female perspective was actually captured pretty well from the household interviews as well. So the basic reflection from the domain-specific questionnaires was that overall, it does indicate, or it did show that this add-on tool, this domain-specific tools could be used alongside a survey, and it could be actually adds a lot of value. And by doing so, it covers all the 11 domains that are important to well-being and provides a deeper insight. So the challenges that we faced with both these surveys was that because this is a different kind of survey that the people are used to, it takes the enumerators as well as the people who are responding a little more time to understand and respond to these questions. And what we found that through intensive training of the enumerators and on the questions, the purpose of the survey, and as well as the key terms and accurate translations, this problem could be minimized a lot. The second problem that we faced is that the tools, like the comprehensive tools, cannot be used on its own. So it has to be used alongside another survey tool. The other one is the third one, and the most important one is the diverse community in the HKH region. So we want this well-being assessment tool to be implemented in throughout the HKH. So there are a lot of diverse community within the HKH. Within even one country, there are a lot of diverse community. So to have a framework that captures everything, every aspect of the well-being of the community is very difficult. So to do this, what we have done is we have actually done a lot of piloting in different countries to capture different elements that are context specific. Also, we have collaborated with experts to get their expert opinion to improve the framework, and also we are using the qualitative instruments, the FGGs and the KIIs, to supplement the information to the already existing framework, so that any missing information can be actually captured by it. So I would like that to end with our overall reflections from the pilots that we have done and the discussions and the overall learnings that we have done made throughout the process. So to start with, well-being is simply not a simple state of outcome, but it is a process with a strong component of spatio-temporality that is perceived at different levels and at different scales, individuals, community, and state scales. Also, the second learning is that the conditional aspiration of well-being in HKH are produced in interplay with social, cultural, political, and socio-economic processes. And the third one is that the well-being, psychological well-being, is shaped by individual personal attributes, but it is also relational at, like example, family and the community. The fourth learning is that globalization is a key driver of change that is affecting cultural practices, and it is also affecting well-being in that way. Globalization, here I also like to bring in modern technology. So we talked earlier about modern technology, how modern technology is helping us bring understanding of well-being, expanding our understanding of well-being. But globalization is also influencing well-being. Modernization is also influencing well-being, because, for example, if you take example of technologies like mobile and internet, they might be actually distancing the community, but at the same time, it is also bringing it together. For example, people who have migrated stay in contact and in touch with and maintain relationship based on these technological devices. The fifth learning is in terms of gender and life assessment. In general, women tended to score lower in terms of satisfaction and in their assessment in the well-being compared to men. This is also found similar in the GNH context. So we find that gender is an important role that we need to focus on when we are looking into well-being. Some factors affect gender more than others, so this is something that we need to keep in mind. And finally, sustaining and restoring healthy mountains environment needs integrated participatory approach to conserving and development. So I think with that, I would like to end my presentation. I bring it back to you.
Thank you so much, Savanya. I think you have taken this very difficult task of presenting our 3 years of work in a very short time. I think it's quite concise. But having said that, I think as we rightly mentioned, this is still a work in progress, and we solicit valuable feedback and inputs to refine this framework and strengthen it further. So please continue to give your feedback and questions to this framework that has been presented. We do not have much time for raising questions, but I can already see a lot of relevant questions in the chat box. There's also a question of how it relates to sustainable development goals, from Rajiv from US. We also have, I think at this stage, then maybe I would like to bring in, I can see Ms. Josna Sitlang, Principal Chief Conservator of Forests, Vanchatat Government, Uttarakhand. Ms. Sitlang, may I request you to kindly unmute your mic, put camera on, and please share your reflections. I can also see your questions in the chat box. So I think, can you manage it in 2 minutes, Ms. Sitlang?
Well, I'll just manage in 2 minutes only. Very nice, and thank you for inviting me to speak. So yeah, apart from whatever, it's wonderfully covered across. Now, I think it's very important to see the market functions also. How, yes, Bhutan, Mr. Karma, huh?
Yes, Karmaji.
Delegate from Bhutan. He wonderfully explained, how the social and environmental goals are getting integrated in the entrepreneurial fray. But at the same time, right at this moment, it's very, since market is making inroads in our lives, so a lot of, inequities are also making inroads from the market functions. So we really need to, our policies while developing this sustainable, this happiness index, need to integrate market functions also, understand market functions, and see, what could be the valid benchmarking of social and environmental benchmarking for the mountain context, and document specific strengths that can document specific strengths to customers, investors, partners, and other stakeholders. That would be very, we need that. Youth aspires for that. We also aspire, market should be, but at the same time, market need to understand how happiness index could be addressed with that. Other part is very important. The whatever is there, sometimes it happens that, all these happiness indicators, etc., whatever we develop, at intellectual level, at policy level, democratizing that those indicators, for bottom-up ownership to the doers, and make and also the underserved. I think that would play a very important role. And yes, the knowledge to be pooled, disseminated, and widely, and where digital technology would play a very important role, and it needs to be very much integrated in the policy systems. At the same time, yes, what could be the legislation for monitoring and reporting, maybe in terms of annual happiness impact, etc., in the policy framework would be very, very important. Now, in the mountain specific thing, what I can really see from the market is, where the happiness index needs to be seen a little from that perspective, is that, yes, market is for many solutions, but, it needs to move away from solution-driven fund, attending market principles to focusing on solving very local problems in the mountain context. And yes, inclusivity needs to be mainstreamed in the transaction of all value links and value capture by the real stakeholders. I think it has to be very much there. How all this and in the mountain context, and with IT technology making, how we can make IT technology very much attain to the happiness index and happiness parameters is where hard coding information generation and information sharing for decision making rather than hard coding decision making would be very, very important for us. And leverage state, market, and social civil society organizations, resources, and expertise for happiness impact would be very, very important. So if all this could be attended as a furtherance to all this exercise that is happening now would be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Sidling. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for bringing your insights. These are wonderful inputs. I think we take note of all your points, right from market forces, the role of social entrepreneurs, digital technologies, and the mountain specificities. So thank you so much once again. We will take note of those to integrate your comments. Let me now invite Dr. Abid Hussain to share a few pointers as a way forward for the Hindu Kush Himalayan well-being research and uptake. Dr. Abid, over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tashi. Let me share my slide. So is it visible to all?
Yes. Dr. Abid, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm quickly going to the action point for future roadmap. Very important feedback given by through questions, our guest speakers and our panelists.
Oh. Sorry, Abid, I think your slides are not visible. Do you want me to share your slides from here?
Sure. I will try again. Is it visible?
Yes, now.
Yeah, thank you very much. So the key action points for each future roadmap are very important to understand based on the input from this workshop and our experiences from ICIMOD work and learning from Bhutan and other countries. So first one is refinement of well-being framework based on input out of this webinar and future consultation, of course. More refinement will be done on concept and methodology part. Then contextual testing will be done through pilots in other HKH countries because well-being is very context specific, especially subjective well-being is very context specific. And then promoting well-being of the mountain of people as a regional good. In ICIMOD, we have vision to strengthen the well-being of mountain people. So we would like to promote this as a regional goal. It's a common interest, common goal of mountain communities in the HKH region. Then harnessing the potential of uniqueness of mountain well-being. Of course, subjective well-being is the niche in mountains to focus on and to highlight this uniqueness is very important, especially cultural diversity and community vitality and time use in mountain areas. Then integrating well-being research in larger studies under relevant initiatives within ICIMOD, we are looking forward in our coming months and years. Not only limiting to expanding our well-being work within ICIMOD initiatives and programs, we are looking forward to strengthen our connections and cooperation with relevant institutions and partners, not only within HKH countries, but global institutions who are working on happiness, well-being related goals. Then based on learning of HKH well-being framework, so mainstreaming mountain uniqueness in existing development plans is a kind of ambitious but very much possible goal. We're looking forward to mainstream well-being, especially subjective well-being goals within development indicators in HKH countries. One thing is very important, promoting well-being as a cross-cutting concept is very important. Under SDGs, out of SDGs, 3 SDGs, they somehow, some way mention well-being as an ultimate outcome of objective indicators. Well-being is very holistic as coming out of our discussions. So objective indicators, economic indicators, market-related indicators are likely to contribute, but it may not be the case always. For example, mental health, culture, community networks. These are a kind of aspects which have trade-off between market economy, globalization, and these values in mountain area. It's very important to understand synergies and trade-offs between these local, very localized contexts of mountain areas and globalization and market economy. You can see out of SDGs, 3 SDGs, they somehow, some way mainstream well-being, but well-being is considered as an ultimate outcome of objective indicators. For example, healthy lives and health-related indicators are likely to result in well-being and mental health improvement. And then education-related indicators are considered to result in improvement of psychosocial well-being. And then resilient infrastructure is seen as an improving factor and an enabler to improve the well-being of communities. So these objective indicators may not always result in improving well-being because, as I mentioned and other speakers also mentioned, there are several aspects under well-being which are independent, need separate more attentions like culture, values, diversity, community vitality, community networks, and local diversity. Thank you very much with this. Over to you, Dr. Tashi.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Abid. I think you managed to summarized it quite well. I think you have really shared, I think, some of the doable and practical way forward. But I still wish to emphasize that we would need to solicit more collaborations and the networks across institutions we have within the region as well as outside to further enrich this and take this way forward. I think last but not the least, let me now invite Dr. Eklavya Sharma, Deputy Director General of ICIMOD, to deliver the closing remarks. Dr. Sharma, over to you. Dr. Sharma, are you there? Hello. Dr. Sharma? Okay. Can you check if Dr. Sharma is around, Udayan?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yes, sorry, Dr. Sharma, we are missing you.
No, I'm here. I'm here right in the beginning.
Sir, the screen is yours. Please go ahead.
Yeah, the internet is very bad today this side, but I try my best from my side. Very good afternoon and good evening to all the participants here. To begin with, I would like to congratulate Dr. Tasi Dorji, who has really run the session so well.
Your sound is breaking, Dr. Sharma. Connectivity is not good. Hello, Udayan?
Actually, if we can switch off the video, maybe I think that might be better.
Okay, I switched off my video.
No, he needs to switch off the video.
Okay. Can you send a chat message in the chat, Udayan, to Dr. Sharma?
Yes, let me do that.
Yeah, or call him quickly.
Hello, I'm
Yes,
back.
yes,
Sorry,
sir. Please,
internet just gone. So thank you very much, Dr. Tasi Dorji. I think it was a wonderful session, and I think our work is really getting on a very good direction. I also was very happy from Mr. Breeze Rathor's presentation, and he has been our founding architect for well-being work, which is going on now. So thank you very much. All the three panelists, wonderful, from Bhutan, from India and Pakistan. They gave a very nice perspective. Bhutan, how GNHS has been put into practice. Then from India, we looked into the science part very clearly. And from Pakistan, what are the needs of the people to become happy, and what are the well-being approaches. I think they were excellent panel presentations. And then, of course, I was also very happy to listen to some of the guests. The guest who co-founder of this concept in Bhutan, and as well as our settling Madam Josna, very clearly. And then, of course, I enjoyed the presentation by Sabrani, the work, 3 pilots, which we have chosen in India, Nepal, and Bhutan, to really test the framework for well-being. And I think the results are coming. And Abid gave a very good framework for the future. So coming to from my side, in terms of how is this work, I think this is one of the fundamental approach when we look at the Hindu Kush Himalayan region. And if we are trying to really globally contribute to SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, then I think we have a unique opportunity and unique concept that is going to bring the well-being in forefront while achieving all the other Sustainable Development Goals. So when we look at this, I was very happy with the presentation. All 3 pillars of these. I'm not talking about goals and targets. 3 pillars, which is the social aspect. And when we think of well-being, we normally think of the social part very much. And then, of course, I heard lots of economic part and environment. So link with nature, with people, and then, of course, also then bringing the economic context into. I think all these were quite amazing. For me, I think from Bhutan, the whole concept is moving across the Hindu-Kush Himalayan region. So this is quite satisfying, and I'm sure very soon the framework with the other countries in terms of like Afghanistan, the western part of the Hindu-Kush Himalayan region, and will really help frame. My opinion, excellent. I am very, very happy with the entire team of ICIMOD and all those people who are collaborating with us for quite some time now, and appreciated. I have a full commitment. You can also, you heard Dr. Pema Gans talking about vision, and right in the beginning, I mean, we have a long-term thinking and plan and broader approach is very much there for men, women, and children. And also well-being for the environment. So that is where the vision itself talk about the link between people and nature. I liked it very much in terms of the ingredients, in terms of the inputs from panels and also from studies. So we are in the right track. I was just trying to listen and understand. I also feel that now we have reached a stage that we should be able to publish few things. I think I saw one almost coming out also in peer-reviewed journals, and I would suddenly go for such a publication, but I would request that we should have reviewers like Daso Karma, who has been the father for JNSS in terms of the science part. We, as an institution, I would say that we can talk about being in very terms. And the approach, which is very systematic, is going to be ultimately very gainful. So let's use that and let's proceed. The cultural aspects also very much in part when we do the science part, the traditional knowledge also when we do the science part. So I think we have to take notes when we talk about well-being. So in this context, I think I'm very glad. So let's try to put all those together and move forward. I simply would like to congratulate the ICIMOD team and all the panelists and the experts who are working on this and wish you a good, I think, future for developing well-being for people of the Hindu-Kush Himalayan region, and a model that would this to elsewhere in the mountains, other mountains of the world, and then, of course, to other regions, including the plains and the coast also. So this is my simply wish, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma, for sharing your wonderful insights. As usual, you bring all those, essential elements to our discussion and to our discourse. Dr. Sharma, you have always been main source of motivation for our team. And it's because of your support and guidance that we could bring this work to this stage. Please consider this as one of your footprint, the well-being and happiness for the Hindu-Kush Himalaya. So as you leave this institution, I think you leave behind with a lot of happiness. So we commit to take this work forward and bring at least at one stage, should be able to take this across our partner institutions. That is our wish. So thank you so much, Dr. Sharma. Before, I think we still have 2 minutes now. So can we spend 1 minute to take a photograph? Udayan, may I request all the speakers, panelists, and the speakers in this webinar to please put on your camera. Please put on your camera, all the panelists and the speakers. Udayan, can you coordinate, please? Yes, Udayan. Sajana is not there. Okay, Sajana can also put on your camera, your organizer.
Yes,
Professor,
thank you.
Okay, Professor.
Can I request all colleagues and the speakers to actually turn on the camera, please, for just a few seconds?
Yes, please go ahead. Smile. Okay. Then?
Just a minute.
Udayan, where are you?
Udayan?
Yeah, I'm coming shortly.
We have 1 minute.
Yes. So let's say cheese.
Cheese.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
So thank you. I think this brings us to the end of today's webinar. I would like to thank all the speakers and participants for your active engagement and valuable input. We look forward to having you all in the next our next event, which will be coming soon. Please visit the link shown in the screen. Udayan, can you show the link?
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. So thank you. I think to learn more about our other events planned around the celebration of International Mountain Day till 17 December. With that, I would like to close this webinar with our best wishes for your continued good health and well-being. Please do get connected with us through our social media, web and digital platforms. Take care, stay safe, and goodbye. So thank you, everyone, and good night. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Asiji, thank you, Bridgie, and everyone.
Thank you.
Saisabdai, could you stop the live stream, please? So yes.